Okay, in this video, we're gonna be talking about the easiest way, in my opinion, to make six figures, which is getting a software development job. There's a lot of steps to this. They're kind of easy, but I'm gonna lay out everything that I did to get my job and people I know who didn't go to college, went to college for something else, or went to college for computer science. I've known all of these people, and all of these people are making six figures, so stick around for that. I was gonna record this video yesterday, but your boy got 2 shots yesterday. I went to CVS for my flu shot, HEB for my other shot. I don't want to say the word. I don't know if YouTube's going to be like banned. Anyways, the other day my girlfriend was at a photo shoot. She does a lot of like real estate lifestyle stuff. And she was at a photo shoot at this beautiful house like in the hills in Austin, Texas. She was sending me these pictures and it had just like this perfect view of the city. The outside had like a shower outside. Super modern building and architecture and styles and materials, and it just looked beautiful. And I was like, I want that. Theoretically, eventually in my life, I might probably will be able to afford something like that if I keep on the same career path that I'm on now. It might, take a while to get there, but hopefully I'll be able to get there eventually. And it got me thinking, like, when you see those houses, you don't think like that real people live there, if that makes sense. You're always like, wow, look at that like $30 million house. Like, I wonder who that is. And then like actually going there or like seeing the people who own it, you're like, this is a real thing that some people can attain in the world. And if that's not your goal, totally fine. I like modern and newer houses that I really want one. And at the same time, during the same day, I got messages from people on Instagram and Twitter asking me how to get into tech because it pays so well. And that's not a lie. It's very common in the tech industry, especially nowadays, to see people making, 200,000 base plus a couple 100,000 stock at these bigger public companies. That's not uncommon to see for mid-level or senior developers these days. It got me thinking, like, I'm gonna make a video about how to actually get one of these jobs because it's not that hard and you don't have to have a college degree. So everybody watching who either didn't go to college or went to college for something else, this is totally attainable for you as well. You can totally get a six-figure tech job without any of those things. And I personally have worked with people who didn't go to college, who went to college for other things, or who literally worked in a completely different profession before doing what they're doing now when they're working with me, which is tech. And I think the first part of this that is most important to know is there's 2 steps here. There's actually 3. The first part is doing side projects. Nobody is going to hire somebody who doesn't know anything about technology or anything about programming. So if you want to be a software developer with no experience, you have to do side projects. You have to learn about the technologies. Let's say you want to be a web developer. Make a website, make a backend, make an API. If you want to be a mobile developer, make a mobile app. It doesn't have to be good. It has to be there. You have to have something to show for your work. A lot of companies nowadays don't want to hire junior developers because they don't want to spend the time training them. If you have pre-existing projects where you can say, hey, I'm like competent enough where I developed this app, I published it to the App Store, and I know about the whole process end to end, that already puts you above a lot of people. If you can prove that you've already done these things and you have experience, that's all they need to know is that you are familiar with the technologies and you already have your foot in the door. Okay, the second part of this whole process is actually getting the interview. So we talked about having side projects, making sure that there's something there to represent the work that you're able to do. The second part is actually getting the interview, which is, in my opinion, the easier part of this whole process because there's only really 2 ways to do it. The first is nepotism, basically knowing somebody in the company, a friend or a family member who can recommend you to the HR department to be hired. There's actually a service called Blind, which is basically just like an online forum for tech people to talk about things. And it goes as far as people on there being like, hey, can somebody give me a recommendation for like Apple or Microsoft or Google? Because recommendations get you in the door. Recommendations basically guarantee you an interview. So if you have the opportunity, you know somebody, try to get a recommendation. If you don't have a recommendation, you don't know anybody in the industry or at that company or anything like that, you're basically left with one other option, which is the option that I was left with, which is basically the peasant option, is to go on to Indeed or any job listing website and just cold apply to companies. It's not the greatest thing, but it's really the only other option you have. And I don't have any like crazy secret techniques to doing this. I made a whole video about the companies that I applied to. I think I applied like 15 of them. Basically, find companies that you think are interesting and apply for those companies. The only thing I can really tell you is to do a cover letter because most people don't. Cover letters are basically your one opportunity to like stand out and put a unique voice into your application. So you can say like, if you wanted to apply to Square, you probably don't want to be like, I love payment processing systems because they're going to know you're lying. What you want to say is something like, I love small businesses. I love working with startups, and working at Square is a good opportunity because that's what Square is like powering as small businesses. So find a way to make your application sound unique, make it sound like you're actually interested in working at the company, and do a cover letter. And don't do a cover letter where it's like, like, hello, insert company name. My name is, you know what I mean? Like, put a little bit of effort into it. And it's pretty much the only thing that you're going to have to stand out from the rest of the crowd. As for your resume, the only tip I have there is, like every other resume tip ever, is just to like make yourself sound really good. Don't say like, I worked on a side project website. Put the type of technologies that you worked with. You know, I worked with a React website powered by a Django backend API to like publish this, blah, 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 blah. Use buzzwords. Try to make yourself sound as like important and knowledgeable as possible without sounding like a dick, because you don't want to come off as like too pretentious on your application, but you want to come out as a little bit pretentious just so people know that you know what you're talking about. It's hard to talk about yourself like that sometimes, but just try to make yourself stand out by kind of bragging a little bit. What? Oh, I thought you were saying I was cute, not the dog. Wow. And step three in this process is the actual interview. Technical interviews, just a preface, suck. They're terrible. They're outdated. They ask you questions that you're never going to use in your daily life at the job. They're going to ask you questions like you're taking a math test in college, because that's basically what it is. If you ever went to college for computer science, they're going to ask you the questions that your professor asked you in your senior course. That's a technical interview. If you didn't go to college or you went to college for something else, this is where it is important for you to study and to know what you're talking about, because a lot of companies don't care that you didn't go to college, but they still expect you to know the same things that somebody who did go to college would know, which on the other hand is also good because these companies don't really care about college degrees, a lot of them. So you just got to be at the same level as somebody who did go to college, which could be hard, but it also is pretty easy if you study. Colleges don't really teach you much computer science stuff. It's like super stupid. No, it's not. Go to college. So the best way that I could recommend somebody knowing how to pass a technical interview, because they're not things you'll actually use in your day job, is to do things like LeetCode. LeetCode is just a website where you go and like answer technical questions, and they'll be like, hey, do this thing. And then you type your code and how you would do it. And then they tell you if you did it right or not. And that is exactly what the technical interview is. If you've never done one, they're going to sit in front of you like a teacher taking a test, but they're like right there, unless it's over Zoom, then they're on the screen and they just like watch you code, and it's super awkward and super embarrassing, and your brain goes all fuzzy and you don't know how to think anymore, and you don't know how to speak words anymore, and you got to somehow answer technical questions while that's all happening. It's a great time. You'll love it. So yeah, practice on LeetCode, practice problems, learn a language that you're comfortable in, preferably the one that's going to be the same for the job. So if you're doing like iOS development, you would preferably learn Swift and be comfortable answering these questions in Swift. If you're going to do, front end or back end, just choose a language, Python, whatever language you're most comfortable with. Hopefully you're going to be doing the test in that language they let you pick normally. So learn something you're really comfortable with, use that language, practice on LeetCode, and you'll probably pass the technical interview. But if you don't, it's totally fine. I took a technical interview before I got this job. 8-hour technical interview. I did not pass because someone did it a little bit better than me. And they were like, if this guy doesn't take it, you can have the job, but that guy took it because he did, whatever. So it's totally normal, totally fine in the tech world to go to an interview and not pass. This is not an interview where they're going to go in and be like, tell us 3 things about yourself and when you've, experienced a challenge at the workplace and you fixed the challenge. Like, that's not at all what these interviews are going to be like. They might have one of those interviews just to kind of get to know you and see if you fit the culture. But most of them are going to be technical interviews, solving data models, data structures, algorithms, big O notation, the amount of time it takes to complete an operation. These are things they're going to test you on, things you need to know to be able to pass these interviews. I don't do well in these, so I make sure that I practice beforehand. So going in, it's more of like I'm just regurgitating the things that I've practiced rather than trying to think on the spot and like answer these problems. A lot of people do these very well. You could be on either end of that spectrum, but no matter what, it's okay to fail these. I failed a bunch of them. You just use them as experience for your next one because you kind of know what they're probably going to ask you next time for like the next job that you go to apply for. So to recap, there's 3 things. You need to do side projects, do a lot of them, make them polished, make them look good, and hopefully they're like published websites or apps that people can go look at. Number 2 is actually getting the interview, which again is done through nepotism, which again is done through knowing somebody or through just applying on Indeed like peasants like I did. And then the third step is actually passing the job interview, which is just straight up done through practicing and being able to answer the questions that they're going to ask you, which again are things that they expect you to know because you learned them in college. And if you didn't go to college, they still expect you to know them. They just don't care that you didn't go to college, as long as you can answer them. So yeah, this is a lot. But it's totally possible for anybody to land a job paying 6 figures. Usually it's like the mid-level jobs that pay 6 figures at least, or if you went to like a more prestigious college, a lot of times they'll kind of bump up your pay to like be like, hey, don't leave us. 6 figures is 100% possible and common in the tech industry right now. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments, message me on Instagram, message me on Twitter. I'm usually around. I'm on my phone. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.